Hello, hello. Awesome, cool. All right, I think we'll get started now. Thank you guys all for coming today. So today we're basically going to be talking about productivity during summer. And essentially, I want to go over kind of like what are some things you can do if you didn't get a summer internship, or even if you do have a summer internship. Because I know it's really relatable. Our first, second years, we're still new. We got a lot of things to learn and whatnot. And sometimes, I like to say lucky. Sometimes we don't get lucky with getting a summer internship, and that's completely fine. So in this workshop, I'll show you guys what you can do if you guys don't have one, or like I said, even if you do have an internship. So this is the check-in code. If you guys want to check in real quick, the code is just summer productivity. Pretty long code. All right, cool. So a little bit about myself is I'm a fifth-year computer science student graduating this upcoming June. And I'm ACM's professional development director. And I'm also involved with Phi Beta Lambda, a business organization on campus, as a director of programming. In terms of my professional experience, I was a past research intern at NASA, and I was a product management intern at a company called Sezzle, then got promoted to a PM and recently got acquired. And I just got a new job that's kind of like a very fast sequence. So yeah, so currently I work as a product manager at a small startup called Verisyn. Besides that, I'm also involved with the entrepreneurial community on campus. I've had the opportunity to have two of my projects accepted into UCSD's incubator, The Basement. All right, so going back to when I first started off, if you don't got a summer internship, no problem. As a fifth year myself, I had 4 summers, and out of those four summers, I've only had 1 summer internship. I think there's a big misconception here at UCSD, which I think is good and bad, is that you got to get an internship your first summer and every single summer. But I would say that's kind of unrealistic because not everybody has experience right off the bat. We're all coming from college. Our first 2 years, I truly believe that we're here to kind of like learn, and you don't got to worry too much about getting an internship your first 1 or 2 years at UCSD. So if you don't have one now, no problem at all. And there's 2 types of categories of things I like to kind of talk about in terms of what you can do during the summer. Is things that can help your professional development and things that can help your personal development. I'll first be going over a few of the things you can do to help your professional development during summer. So I like to break it down into 3 different categories. There's things that you can do to increase your chances of getting an internship, things you can do to enhance your soft or technical skills, or things you can kind of do casually to prepare yourself for the following school year. Diving in first is what are some things you can do to increase your chances of getting an internship? The first thing is just optimizing your professional portfolio. So this is taking things you've already worked on, such as your resume, your cover letter, your LinkedIn, and optimizing it as much as you can, just to make sure when the next internship or job season comes up, it's all kind of like optimized and prepared to go. The next thing I would heavily recommend is interview preparation. Me personally, the reason why I didn't get an internship my first 4 summers was, I'm gonna be honest, I didn't interview prep a lot. I thought, just going to UCSD, taking a few computer science classes was good enough to pass those, really hard technical interviews. Later found out it's not the case. And the last thing you can do, which I think is the most fun, is just doing new things that can help you build yourself professionally, as well as help your resume as well too. First, we're gonna be talking about optimizing your professional portfolio. First is your resume. So in the next few slides, I'm gonna just be going over really quick some general resume tips. If you have any questions or whatnot, feel free to ask me afterwards. But yeah, I'm gonna be going over resume and LinkedIn, which is a whole nother workshop in itself. I'm gonna try to recap it very fast. So typically with your resume, for the format you want is 1 page. 1 page is the typical, if you're not going into research, if you're going to industry, your resume should only be 1 page long. And if you notice between these 3 different resumes, they have, different fonts, different colors, kind of like slightly different design. But if you notice one thing is the overall format is kind of the same. Each of these people have their education, their work experience, any projects or leadership they have, skills, and if you have any awards as well too. So there's not one master format you need for your resume, but I would generally say, make sure your resume follows a format, something like this in this similar fashion. The first section I want to go over is the education portion. So the education is pretty self-explanatory. This is where you kind of talk about, where you're going to school. I'm assuming all of you guys here, you guys go to UCSD. So you could just put up here, typically in the education section, your school, your major, and when you're graduating. I would definitely say when you're graduating is the most important because sometimes internships and jobs and whatnot, they want to recruit students of a certain year, either students who are becoming a full-time or they're looking for juniors or incoming seniors. So putting your year, in my opinion, is the most important thing you can do. The second most important thing is putting any relevant coursework. So this typically applies to if you're applying to a more technical job, let's say, I'm just using that as an example, software engineering, it requires a lot of hard technical skills. So any courses related to those skills you want to do, put it on. And I wouldn't say list all your courses, because I've seen some people, they list literally all the 20 or 30 courses they have. But I would honestly keep it to one line. And I'm not too familiar about kind of other kind of industries and whatnot, but for computer science, software engineering, I would definitely put your data structures class, anything revolving around algorithms and like basic Java and C++ as the coursework you should put kind of on your resume. And if you have any honors, you can like put it down as well if there's room. For your experience, this is, in my opinion, the most important part of the resume. And when you're writing out your experience, you really want to emphasize kind of the impact you made rather than just kind of like listing out everything that you kind of did. And the best way to do that is by using numbers if you can. For example, the first is kind of one of my experiences. And notice for each kind of bullet point, I put in, except the first one, the last two, I kind of put in numbers to kind of like show my impact. I didn't just work with a few enterprise clients. I worked with over 10 to implement kind of cross-functional promotional capabilities. And if you notice in these other two examples, which is more software engineering focused, they put kind of like their impact as well too. So that's the number one thing when doing your experience. And make sure for each bullet point is just one line long. Sometimes if you make an experience kind of a bullet point 2 lines, it might be a little too much. And typically when people are reading your resume, they're only taking 30 seconds to 1 minute. So you kind of want to make it short and sweet while getting kind of to the point as well. The next section is your project. So this can range from any class project, personal projects, or any projects you made during like a hackathon and whatnot too. You can also include it kind of like on your resume. And kind of the same thing, kind of how I talked about your experience, kind of highlight your impact or kind of like what you did. Don't just say, I made a web app. I made a web app with this, this, and this to serve these types of users. So make sure you highlight the impact when talking about your projects as well too. And I know I'm showing a lot of examples. Don't worry, the slides I have today is a lot of content. I'll be linking the slides that you guys through a QR code that you guys can view at the end. All right, one of the last parts of the resume is your skills. This is typically more important just for recruiters to kind of like select use, because when you submit your resume, the recruiters typically look at keywords too. Because the first person that's looking at the resume isn't like the hiring manager. They normally have a recruiter looking at your resume. So typically the recruiters are looking for keywords, like for example, once again, software engineering, we're looking for people who know C++, Java, and all these other cool frameworks and whatnot. So list down everything that you know under your skills. I would break it down into categories as well too. Like the first example, they do it very, very well. The only thing though is don't lie, because I know sometimes your interviewer will test you on skills, specifically if you put them down. Like, not gonna lie, that kind of messed me up. I remember one time for one of my projects, I was really good at JavaScript when I really wasn't. I remember one of the interviews, they were like, oh yeah, so it's like you're pretty good at JavaScript. They asked me like the most basic questions, did not know how to answer it. So that was kind of like a lesson learned. So, you can put some things you're a beginner level with, but I wouldn't like straight up like lie about having certain skills, of course. All right, cool. So that was kind of optimizing your resume. Now let's talk about optimizing your LinkedIn. And if you don't know, LinkedIn is almost like a professional network. And I know a lot of the times it gets kind of like memed a lot. There might be a lot of cringe content on LinkedIn and whatnot. But for you personally, it can serve as a great tool to kind of bolster your resume. So typically a LinkedIn, I like to consider it as almost like an extended resume. Because whereas a resume is only one page, a LinkedIn, you can be as detailed as you want. And it's pretty like self-explanatory. When you kind of sign up for an account, there's like onboarding, they tell you to fill out your headline, your experience and whatnot. So I'll quickly go through some kind of like rules of thumb when creating your LinkedIn profile. First is your headline. And the headline is the first thing that people see. And it's actually like right under the profile picture under their name, where it says, for this, my friend Jaden, incoming production engineer intern. So that is the headline. And the headline is one of the most important things, in my opinion, because it's the first thing that people see. And a lot of recruiters are on LinkedIn too. And me personally, a lot of recruiters have reached out to me. So, and I think it's because I optimized my resume, not because I have, super cool experience, just because I think I really filled out my LinkedIn very, very well. So when making a headline, you want to make it concise yet descriptive. You want to talk about who you are and what your aspirations are. So here are some examples we have on the right here. The first headline is my most favorite headline, and this person was actually a UCSD alumni, and he works for I believe Microsoft, and he got many, many awards. So very qualified guy. And you notice his headline is very descriptive. You can immediately look at it and see what he's all about. I really like the fact he put in some emojis as well. So that's kind of a cute little fun touch. Some examples up here, you can just kind of talk about, where you're going to work in the summer, where you're working now, what your interests are. For those of you who don't have an internship, that's okay. If you don't have any current work experience, that's okay as well. What I would put though is put yourself as UCSD and whatever your major is. Because typically when you're applying to jobs, when they see that you're a part, when people see that you're a student, they typically give you more priority if you're already a working professional, especially if you're reaching out to alumni. They'll see, oh, UCSD, I went to that same school. So if you don't have any experience, that's okay. Put down UCSD and then put down your major. And I'll put down my interest and your aspiring career. So the third tag headline was one of my first ones when I didn't really have an internship. I put myself UCSD computer science, entrepreneur. I wanted to brand myself as kind of entrepreneur. And I put product manager because that was the role I wanted to be. So if you have no experience, no problem. You can definitely do something simple like that. Next is the about section. So I kind of see the headline, what I described before, as kind of like the hook. It's what makes people kind of click on your profile and go in. And the about section is what I think keeps people staying. So the about section is almost a little bit like a cover letter. You really want to highlight kind of who you are a little bit more in depth, and you can write it kind of like a cover letter, so kind of talk about your background, the skills you have, what you're looking for and whatnot. Or you can make it a little bit more kind of creative, kind of like the UC application, you have 350 words to kind of convey admissions officers to let you in. You can kind of use that same mentality when creating kind of this about section. When talking about kind of who you are and your experiences, you also want to include keywords too. So if you work in a very technical heavy job, put in, Java, C++, all those kind of keywords. Also too, at the end, I would definitely put something I call a call to action. So if you were looking at, if you were looking for an internship, at the end of your about section, put down, I'm looking for internships for the 2023 season. That helps a lot. Or if you just want to network, I think I put this on mine. I just put at the end, looking to connect with like-minded people. And I have people reach out to me from UCSD and from outside of UCSD, just connecting because they told me, at the end of your about section, you kind of encourage me to kind of reach out. One of my friends, he actually puts a Calendly link to schedule a meeting right away. He tells me he's on calls with two times a week, and he also does have that much experience too. It's just the fact that he put a call to action at the bottom of his about section, which led to people wanting to network with him. Next section, similar to on the resume, is the skills section. It serves the exact same purpose of the resume. It's so when LinkedIn recruiters come to your page, they go down to your skills and they see kind of all the keywords that they're looking for. Also, when you apply to jobs on LinkedIn as well too, they match the skills here to the job description too. So it actually helps you apply when you're applying to jobs on LinkedIn too. And the cool thing about skills is you can have people quote unquote endorse you, which means if I put myself as knowledgeable as C++, my coworker can endorse me, which shows a level of credibility too. So my suggestion is, if you worked in a group project on campus, let's say, you built an app, you can ask your kind of teammates to endorse you. Like I said, it brings another layer of credibility. Cool. And the last most underrated part of your LinkedIn profile is the recommendation system, the recommendation section. So typically when you apply to full-time jobs, not really internships, but full-time jobs, employers sometimes ask for a recommendation, and sometimes it's inconvenient because you have to ask people, they have to submit it through a portal. And if you're applying to multiple jobs that ask for a recommendation, you're gonna have to ask the person you want a recommendation from to probably submit their recommendation to 5 different emails. But the cool thing about LinkedIn recommendations is you can request for one, somebody can write it for you, and it lives on forever on your LinkedIn profile. So very cool and underrated section of your LinkedIn profile. Cool. So I kind of went over on a few ways you can, optimize your professional portfolio. And now I kind of want to talk about my favorite part of preparing to get an internship, the interview preparation. Kind of talked about a little bit before, but me personally, this was the one that really caused me not to have an internship for 4 summers. It was just like, I was kind of like lazy, a little arrogant in terms of like, I got an A in my CSC 100 class. I could pass the interview. Sadly for me, it did not work out like that. And I did have to prepare very hard over the summer. So there's typically 2 types of questions you want to prepare for when you're interview prepping. One of them is technical, one set is technical questions, the other set is behavioral questions. For technical questions, depending on kind of like what industry you want, just because I'm giving a workshop for ACM, I'm going to emphasize more on the software engineering. So for software engineering, the best way you can prepare for technical interviews, you guys probably already know, is LeetCode. And I have HackerRank up there just to show, I'm not just biased for LeetCode, but if you guys don't know what LeetCode is, it's basically a platform where you can practice algorithm coding questions that are typically always tested in software engineering internships. And if you don't know kind of like, what questions to do, because this website has like thousands of questions, there's actually, if you go to Google and type in blind 75, it's basically a list that a few industry experts compiled, the top 75 questions people should do in order to really be prepared for the technical interview. So definitely recommend the blind 75. It's free. You can just Google it. And yeah, so for other jobs, there's, depending on what job you're applying for, there's different technical questions that are being asked. Me personally, being involved with kind of like the business community on campus and working kind of like a business job myself, the best way to prepare for kind of like quote unquote business related jobs, such as like consulting, marketing, product management, and any type of like analyst role, is doing case studies. What a case study is you typically get a prompt revolved around like a business question and whatnot, and you're asked to kind of like solve it. And typically when you solve it, there's like a certain framework. I'm not going to go into like how you solve it because like there's many different frameworks, but after I released the slides, I actually put a link to sample case studies from like the top business and consulting firms. And yeah, typically when you prepare for case studies, it really translates to other industries, because it's like in any business, you're going to need to know how to problem solve, right? So you're pretty sufficient with solving case studies. You should honestly be prepared for any business related kind of technical interview. And yeah, for product management, something I used was a really cool website called PM Exercises. Kind of same thing as LeetCode, it just gives a database of kind of like past questions that were asked at various companies. And the next type of kind of interview questions you want to prepare for is behavior questions. This is probably also very underrated too. I know a lot of people like to focus on the technical interview, but sometimes in my opinion, I think it's a lot of your soft skills that will get the job. I had a friend, his name's George actually, and he got an internship at Oracle recently. And very smart guy, like he prepared very hard for the technical interview, but he told me like all the questions he got was purely behavioral, and he said like he really thought he got the job because he had like a really strong connection with the person he was talking to, and it was just by practicing his behavior questions and whatnot. So with that being said, the 3 questions you should definitely prepare for any interview, you will for sure be asked this, is the tell me about yourself question. So a lot of people, when they do this question, they like to go like talk about it for 3, 4, 5 minutes. But honestly, it should only take you 1 or 2 minutes, and you really want to like highlight who you are. Don't try to list everything off your resume because they have your resume. So when talking about preparing for the tell me about yourself question, make it 1 minute, 2 minutes, and really highlight, in my opinion, like how I prepare for it is like why I applied to the company, why I'm interested in that industry, and why I would be a good fit for that role. The next question, it's sometimes a pretty hard one, is tell me your greatest strengths and weaknesses. So this one, it's not too hard if you have time to think about it, but just be prepared for it, because when you get asked like, what is your weakness, throws most of us off. The last one is why should we hire you over other candidates? Normally companies won't ask you explicitly like this, but it will be some variation, like what makes you stand out from the crowd, basically. So definitely prepare for that. And know your resume inside and out, because if you're asked, a question about one of your experiences, it should be on the top of your head, should not stumble or anything. You should really know each bullet point, each stat, each little thing you wrote on your resume, so you can talk about it and talk about it in depth. And I think I forgot to finish my train of thought on this third bullet point, but the best way to prepare for behavior interviews is just doing mock interviews with your friends. So have kind of like a list of questions, find a friend, have your friend ask you that questions in kind of like a kind of not professional manner, but kind of like, you guys are sitting down maybe face to face or over Zoom, have your friend ask you a few questions. And yeah, last one is make sure you have questions prepared for your interviewer and try to think of unique ones, not just like, oh yeah, what do you like most about this job? One of the ones I like to ask is still kind of generic, but I think a little bit more unique is if you go to like a company's careers pages, they normally talk about the company's values and whatnot. And I typically ask, which of those values, I would memorize those values and be like, out of these values, which ones do you resonate the most and like why? And yeah, and another one too, I've been asking a lot, like in my job search is I ask that person about kind of their journey. Because typically the person that's interviewing you, they're probably working in the same role in industry, but like a higher level. So kind of ask them, making it a little bit more personal about like their journey into that current company. And yeah, the best place to find sample technical and behavior questions is this handy website called Glassdoor. So if people don't know what Glassdoor is essentially a site where it has reviews of various companies. But also, when you search up a company on Glassdoor, there's a section called interviews. And when you click interviews, people literally post the exact questions they got for that company for a particular role. So this is extremely useful. I know another friend in ACM. I forgot his name. He told me like last year, but remember he told me that he was on Glassdoor and he was just doing all the questions. I believe it was for a Google internship. It was for a Google interview. He was doing all the the questions tagged into Google. He said he got a really hard question on his actual interview, but he actually prepared for it because he saw it on Glassdoor. So if you're applying to a huge company like, Facebook, Google, something like that, or even small companies, definitely check out Glassdoor. And two, you have your trusted friend Google. So if you're working in kind of like, if you're just trying to find out questions, what type of questions you're going to be asked and you don't know, you can type in, marketing interview questions. Google, in my opinion, is also a very, very good resource. Cool. So last thing I want to let you know. So, we're preparing during the summer, we're interviewing, prepping hard, but it's just very good to be aware that for the next summer, interviews and kind of like application season starts in the fall. So if you're interview prepping from like June to August, start applying to jobs in September. Typically all like the quote unquote big internship or like the big companies, they close their applications around December or early January. So make sure you start applying into the fall, apply early so you don't have to, stress apply at the end. Cool. Yeah. So we covered, things you can do to, interview prep. Now I kind of want to talk about things you can do to like add, and like I said, this is kind of like the thing I like to do the most because you're actually doing something typically with the intention to boost your resume, but when you're doing something new, you're learning and it's always really fun. So number one thing that can help your resume is doing a personal project. Typically, if you're a technical major, software engineering, data science, there's a lot of ideas already out there on what you can do. So typically it's like building an app, building a website, building something like that. And in terms of how to start, super easy. You want to build a clone of Twitter, go to YouTube, type in how to build a clone of Twitter. So many resources out there that will help you kind of create a personal project. The other thing you can do too is there's websites called like Udemy, Coursera. They're basically websites that sell courses on a particular skill. And I like these for if you're like a complete beginner, because these courses typically walk you from beginner all the way to advanced, and they will walk you through on how to build that project. So definitely would check out Udemy. Udemy is probably my #1 recommendation. And if you don't want to do, or you already have a few coding projects, you want to try something new, there's plenty of other things you can try. You can try doing an entrepreneurial venture, like selling things on Etsy. You have like a hobby where you build something, try to sell on Etsy. You can definitely put that on your resume. Anything you think that is somewhat productive, you can put on your resume, because when building a resume, I think your aim is to fill it to one page. So you're just missing like one experience. Put down the Etsy shop you've been working on for a while. An interesting one most people don't do, I know a few people, is blogging. I think blogging is pretty cool because it shows character. If you put your own blog on your resume, if somebody's interested, they're going to click it and they're going to read your stuff. It brings another kind of layer to your personality when applying to these different jobs. If you do any freelance jobs, and when I mean freelance, it could be anything. Let's say you're a graphic designer, right? If you design something for your mom, you're a freelancer. So put that on your resume. You can do that as well. Last thing is doing a case study. And I see a lot of these being done typically for people who are pursuing kind of like design or UX, UI. But case studies, there's typically like, so you can find like a current company, like I'll use an example for one of my friends. She wanted to do a design case study on Spotify, right? So she kind of did like a write-up on her own, writing about what she thought about the design of Spotify. And then she kind of redid it herself and she did a write-up on that. She puts a link to that on her resume, talking about like what her findings were. If you want to take it a step further, you can do like customer interviews, like ask people for opinions, run some surveys. But doing case studies, it's pretty fun as well too. Like it doesn't have to be just CS related, it could be design, business related. Just think about a business problem, do a 2 or 3 page write-up, boom, slap it on your resume. And these are some qualities I think make a good personal project and uses a relevant skill, and not just a technical skill, it can be like a soft skill, so yeah, anything you do a coding project, you use C++, Java, all that cool stuff. You do freelancing, you do freelance design, you use design tools, you use kind of like design methodologies. Make it interesting too, like there's probably like a lot of generic projects. At least I know for programming, a very generic project is building a weather app, just because there's a lot of tutorials and I know a few classes you have to build a weather app. So try to make something a little bit interesting. And the fourth thing is make it realistic. And this means like when you're trying to think of a project to do, don't like, I want to build a functioning Facebook and release it to 10,000 users in 1 month. Make it realistic because you only have 3 months for the summer. If your project is interesting, you can continue it off. But if you're making something just during the summer, make it realistic. Another thing you can do to like add another project to kind of your resume is doing hackathons. So if you're interested in software engineering or even UX UI design, you could definitely do hackathons. And if you don't know what a hackathon is basically a 2 or 3 day competition where you work in a team to build a functioning app within that time frame. So it's kind of funny if you want to really just add projects to your resume very quick, is do a hackathon because you only have 2 days and you have to have a project. So here are some organizations I would definitely recommend checking out. Major League Hacking. If you go to the website, they post a bunch of upcoming online hackathons you can do. And DevPost is kind of like the same thing. DevPost kind of features hackathons that are outside MLH2. So there's definitely more variety when kind of looking for hackathons on DevPost. Next thing you can do is make a portfolio website. I feel this is like kind of fun as well too. And anybody of any major, no matter what you're pursuing, can make a portfolio website. So typically the bare basics what you should include on your website is a little bit about yourself, your background, your interests, and kind of like whatnot. You're a student at UCSD. Definitely put down any personal projects you have. Put down your resume if you want, or you can kind of like list your experience. And at the end, you can put links to your socials, GitHub, LinkedIn, Instagram. I would only put Instagram if it's appropriate. Obviously, that's kind of implied. But yeah, definitely if you have a LinkedIn or GitHub, put it on your website. Yeah, these are 4 sample websites from a few of my friends in ACM that I think kind of like, cover all those points I kind of mentioned. So yeah, like I said, I'll send the link out after this. But yeah. All right. And if you don't know how to code a website, that's fine. There's a lot of platforms out there that they're called basically drag and drop website builders, where it's super easy to build a website with these kind of platforms. So there's Squarespace, Wix, WordPress. They typically all have like a free plan. So yeah, would definitely check out these website builders. Okay, cool. So I know that was a lot, but like I said, I'll have the slides available, but we just kind of went over on things you can do to increase your chances of getting an internship. But your summer and learning, it's not all about always getting an internship. Maybe you just want to improve your technical skills or some other like soft skills that you wanted to kind of improve. And just got one slide on this. The best way to do that is taking a course. Sometimes taking like a course puts you on track too, because when you take it, even an online course, they have like deadlines for you and whatnot. So kind of like paces you at the same time. And there's 3 course platforms that I would highly recommend: Udemy, Coursera, and EDX. So for Udemy, it's more kind of like skills based. So if you like want to learn like how to program, for example, or you want to learn about like trading on the stock market, I would definitely check out Udemy. Udemy, it does cost money, but courses are typically only like $10 to $30, not too much money. Coursera and EDX are from like actual universities. So if you want to learn more about like the theory behind something, I would definitely check out Coursera and EDX. But if you want something more practical, check out Udemy. I have YouTube on here too, because YouTube has everything for free. So if you want to learn like anything on Udemy or EDX, you can probably find it on YouTube. I just like these websites because they're more structured. They give you like assignments and stuff as well too. YouTube is just a video format. Awesome. So the last thing I want to talk about is what are some things you can do to prepare for the upcoming school year? So there's 3 things I think you can prepare yourself, especially if you're a freshman or even a sophomore, on what you can do for the upcoming school year. First thing is you can find out what clubs you want to join. I feel joining an organization or club is very, very underrated. People are like, you know what, joining a club, it doesn't matter. But, we're here at ACM, and I feel like, we do some pretty cool stuff here at ACM, and it helps your resume because, you can join the board, you can do a bunch of networking. A lot of the people who helped me in my professional career, I met through clubs such as ACM. And so there's the Center for Student Involvement, and you just type in UCSD's Center for Student Involvement. They have a list of literally like all the clubs on campus, and we have like 500. So there should be no excuse on why you don't join a club, because there should literally be a club for every single interest. So definitely I would look into clubs to join, just so you're aware when you see like their GBM kind of announcements and kind of like whatnot. The next thing is prepare for what classes. I feel like I kind of did like a project on this, and me and my friend, we kind of surveyed on kind of like how often do people go to counselors or prepare for their classes. Most people don't. And sometimes, because of this, you miss a class, you have to wait for the next quarter and whatnot. So I would definitely say, look at all your requirements, look at what courses are offered for the upcoming school year, and kind of like plan it out on like a spreadsheet or something like that. The last thing I think you should do is look into any like research programs or like internship programs on campus. Typically, for internships, you have to apply, but normally from universities, they have like programs where it's kind of like the application process is more geared towards people who want to go into like academia and whatnot. And a few we have on campus is the San Diego Supercomputing Center. They have tons of internships year round in like project management, software engineering, research. So would definitely check out the website too. There's also a job portal called the Real Portal. So just REAL. And it basically is people post research opportunities there, and it's specifically for UCSD students. So definitely check that out. Last resource, you've probably all heard of it, is Handshake. So this is just a job board. It has on-campus jobs, internships, full-time jobs, as well as research positions. And I would highly recommend Handshake because since Handshake is UCSD specific, the people who post postings on Handshake are looking for UCSD students. So definitely would check out Handshake. Cool. So went over a bunch of stuff about professional development, but the summer is not just about working hard. It's a break. We all work very hard for 9 months throughout the school year. So we should, have some downtime, work on ourselves a little bit. So with that being said, the one thing I want you guys to take away from not having an internship during the summer or just wanting to be productive is make sure you take care of yourself. Summer is the best time where you can just catch up on sleep. I would recommend, I know this is hard for all of us, including myself, but minimize the screen time. We're always on the computer. We're always kind of like, in class, especially because of Zoom, we're always staring at the screen. So try to minimize that as well too. The other thing is make sure you stay in contact with your friends. I know this is kind of like a funny one, but I know a lot of us, we go back home for the summers, typically like 3 months and whatnot. And you may have friends back home, may not. I'm gonna be honest, I don't have many friends back home, but I live in San Diego now, so it's all cool. But besides that, so I would definitely say make sure you stay in contact with your friends, go for a jog, like hang out with friends and whatnot. And yeah, just make sure you take care of yourself. And with that being said, out of all those, I would definitely say spend time outdoors. When we're on campus, we go to cool events like this. We go to like, all like sun god, we're outdoor, all these cool things. We're not at home sometimes, we get a little lazy, or it's like we're not in the right environment to be super active. So make sure, you want to read a book, go to the park, go read a book, go to the beach, go for a walk, or even like go out at night, go enjoy the nightlife of San Diego or wherever you're at. So make sure you get some good outdoor time. The other thing too is pick up a hobby. During summer, it's what, 3 months, that's almost 90 days where most of us or some of us have a bunch of free time, so learn something new, whether it be productive, whether it be fun. It could be like a game like chess, it could be like reading, cooking, working out, something like that. Or planting. I think this summer I'm gonna try out planting. Never really done it before, but one of my friends, so I have like a recycle bin in kind of like my house where there's a bunch of cans. And one of my friends came over. They basically took my cans and made plants out of it. I think it looks pretty cool. You see like a little plant growing out like a Bud Light can, kind of cute. But yeah, so pick up a hobby no matter what it is. And some tips on finding a hobby is finding a hobby is hard. So what I would recommend is think of all the hobbies you possibly can, write it down, and just go through the list. Check off ones you don't enjoy and go on to kind of like the next. The other tip is try to do something you're not really accustomed to. I know a bunch of you guys probably coding at least like 12 hours a day. So, for a hobby, try not to do a coding related hobby, just so there's more variety kind of like in your summer break. And don't be afraid to try a lot of things and even new things. Like I said, never really was a planner, but I see people do it. I kind of want to try it. Maybe I like it, maybe I don't. Don't like it, I'll move on to the next thing. And list of hobbies are hard. So I found a list of 1,000 hobbies, so broken down by interest. So if you guys do not find a hobby you like off of this list, you guys might be from another planet. I'm not even joking about that. So yeah, conveniently for you guys, I have this right here. What's up? Was there a question? Oh, no worries. Oh, yeah. Scan it real quick. Yeah, my bad. Cool. Last thing I want to emphasize, from, student to graduate to, still student is make sure you have your fun. Like I said, we're always on that grind. We're always trying to get the internship. We're always trying to, bolster our resume. But, summer, we only have it for most of us 3 times. For me, since I took a 5th year 4 times. And after you graduate, there's no more summers. You get 2 weeks of vacation out of the year. In school, you get summer plus your break. That's almost 4 months of vacation. So take some time, plan a trip with friends, go to the movies, visit a concert, do something fun, go out and about and kind of just enjoy your life. And some things I've done in my 4 summers that I didn't have an internship is, like I said, I did a lot of interview prep, lots and lots of interview prep. I took a few courses on Coursera, just kind of about product management. That was a field I kind of wanted to join, kind of get into, but I didn't really know kind of like where to start. Me personally, I love hiking, went on a bunch of hiking trips with a lot of my friends, including my friend Steven right here, and my friend Brian. LinkedIn too, did a lot of networking on LinkedIn. So what I mean by networking is I reach out to people on LinkedIn asking for like coffee chats and whatnot. So this is sometimes a good way to learn about a certain field. And during the summer, I had a lot of time, so I just sent out a bunch of random kind of messages to people, just asking to like talk to them, learn more about kind of the background. Especially since I was really interested in entrepreneurship, I reached out to tons of entrepreneurs and whatnot. In terms of the fun stuff, I kind of got into like working out, which is kind of a hobby of mine now. And I don't do it as much, but I started playing chess. Chess is really, really fun. Yeah, some final tips and advice I have is like I said, don't stress if you don't have an internship. I actually talked to like a few recruiters at like Fortune 500s, and they said most of the times internships are only meant for juniors going to their senior year, at UCSD, especially the ACM community, we're all very motivated and whatnot. We're always trying to get the internship the first summer, which is fine, but if you don't get it, like I said, not the end of the world. You have plenty of things you can do to help your chances of getting an internship and just having fun. Next step is define what the professional goals are and do activities that will help you reach those goals. So whether it's getting an internship, developing a new skill, or just picking up a hobby, narrow down what your goals are and kind of do things based on that. Last thing, just want to emphasize is make sure you have fun and take care of yourself. We only have summer while we're in these short 4 to 5 years of undergrad. So make sure you take advantage of it. Life is just more than internships and professional success. Yeah, so that's my workshop. I know it was a lot. I had a lot of slides, but you guys want to reference, you can just scan this QR code and yeah. Anyone have any questions?
And don't forget to check in.
And don't forget to check in, of course. Yeah. So. Thanks, guys. Any questions? What's up, Luke?
Yeah, I was wondering what personal projects you have endeavored.
Yeah, so I actually built kind of a class planning app with a few friends actually in this room called Your Year. And basically it was just a coding project, we thought about at a hackathon. And yeah, the premise of the app was, you can plan your 4-year plan on your, kind of like on this app that we made too. So yeah, it was really fun. And it's a really good talking point kind of like in my interviews as well too, because this was kind of like an app we built because we saw like a problem. So it would kind of show like a little entrepreneurial experience and me kind of like pursuing product management and showed kind of like taking initiative, working in a team and whatnot. I also, in kind of like my past times when I was pursuing software engineering, I did a few hackathons, so pretty self-explanatory, nothing too crazy, just did a few hackathons, put it on my resume. But yeah, nothing super unique or anything like that. Awesome. What's up?
What do you think about putting a relevant coursework on your resume? Like, say that you work at a food place, you're trying to get into like software.
Yeah, most definitely. Like any experience is good experience, because I kind of said this earlier in the workshop, but the goal is just to fill up your resume. So if you have like no experience from like any experience right now, put your high school stuff. The whole goal is to keep your resume filled one page at all times. So, and honestly, you can kind of like word your experiences to make it always sound good. When I think about food, I think of many ways you can talk about customer service, handling money, closing up shop, serving 200 customers a day. So any experience is good experience, in my opinion. What's up?
Say you're really good at starting personal projects,
Mhm.
not great at finishing them.
Yeah.
How do you feel about putting stuff like that?
Yeah, honestly, if you've done enough that you could talk about it, I would definitely say put it on, because like kind of that personal project I was talking about, like I kind of put it on my resume even after the hackathon, even when it wasn't completed, and like it's actually sometimes a better talking point because you're like, oh yeah, this is what I built so far, but I'm still working on it right now. So if you have enough where you think you can like talk about it, you did some things at least, I would say, yeah, you can put it on. And like I said, always mention that you're still working on it. I think it sounds like you're dedicated to a project. Cool. Any other questions? Yeah, so kind of mixed opinions on this because I'm in another like business organization, Phi Beta Lambda, and we heavily emphasize cover letters. From my experience seeing kind of like being involved with like, Phi Beta Lambda and ACM is like what I've seen in my personal experience is if you're applying to a business related job, so I'm gonna be honest, anything that's not like tech, you should do a cover letter. Cover letters typically in consulting, you need a cover letter. You're trying to work for those big 4 MBB firms, you need a cover letter. For tech, I have never submitted a cover letter. And Steven, have you ever submitted a cover letter? No. Bryce, have you ever submitted a cover letter? No. Yeah, these guys have internships at the top companies, never submitted a cover letter. So if you're applying for software engineering, I would say you don't need to. The only thing is, if you're applying to like your dream company, I would say a cover letter wouldn't hurt you, so yeah, that's my 2 cents on that. Also, any other questions? Awesome. Well, it was a pleasure. Before I leave, I actually want to take a quick selfie because, I've been giving workshops for ACM and like the UCSD community for like 2.5 years, and this is going to be my last ACM workshop. So it was really, it's been great. It's been great doing workshops. I did some in person, a lot online, but the ACM community is great too. So I definitely, if you guys are new to ACM, definitely check them out. But I'll just take a picture right here. You guys want to like get in? That's cool. All right, 1, 2, 3. I'll try from the corner. All right, 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Yeah, thank you guys for showing up. If you guys have any questions, come up to me afterwards. But yeah, thank you guys for coming.